Ladies and gentlemen and children of all ages. Probably not. I mean,
Children shouldn't be watching these movies, Jacob, that we're
if
going
you
to talk
stumbled
about.
upon this as a child, I don't know how that happened.
Oh,
The
that algorithm.
Welcome to another episode of a podcast about movies. I am Jacob, joined as always by the soon-to-be birthday guy, Austin Pez. Austin, how's it going?
Just a few short hours, but I will say this, Jacob, thank you first for letting me pick the topic for my birthday. I will obviously repay the favor. We'll talk about that at the end of the show. But listen, any day I get to talk about horror movies is a good day, but any day I get to talk about some of my favorites here with you on this show is a great day, sir. So thank you very much. Appreciate it.
Absolutely. And yeah, no, I think you picked a great topic. It's one that we haven't covered before. We've covered remakes, but we haven't, gone specific. And so today, you have chosen to do some horror remakes, which I'm not surprised that you chose something in the horror genre. And it's
And
probably
I
going to
shouldn't be
be
surprised if maybe you pick something in an animation genre for yours. We'll see. So
possible.
hey, it's what we do. We know each other, so we shouldn't be surprised.
Yeah.
But we're always broadening each other's horizons and and talking about things. But it's a give and take. That's a good partnership. That's what we do.
It is, yes.
Yes.
Yeah, I was able to, because of this, I was able to add 3 movies to my first time watches for the year.
There you go. So
Which
it's always
I
good
believe,
to add stuff on Letterbox, right? Like
yeah,
you're always adding stuff to your Letterbox. That's not bad.
I think I'm up to 34 or 35 first time watches for the year, which
Nice.
for me is pretty good. I think that's what I average in a year. I
I was gonna say,
like to
are
watch what
you're including like older stuff too, right? Is that what you're doing?
yeah, that's just older stuff. That's not including the new releases. That's a list all on its own.
Oh wow. Okay.
So,
Yeah,
yeah,
because I was gonna say I've got 30 new releases this year so far, which is pretty good for me. I'm outpacing last year.
right.
I've only got 8 older movies this year
Mm,
so far, but I'm working on that. That's the one I usually catch up on like later. Once
right.
the movies like in theaters kind of slow down, or if it's a slow week at the theater,
Mhm.
I'll bang out 1 or 2. But I've actually seen a whole bunch in the last like 2 weeks, so I haven't had any
Nice.
time to watch older stuff.
Right.
But yeah.
I haven't as much recently for the month of March because I finally got a new job and I'm not home all the time. So
Right.
that's kind of where the majority of those watches came from. I was babysitting, kids would nap. They would nap for the perfect length of a movie. So I turned the movie
You're
on.
like, hey, what's a movie I haven't seen that's like 90 minutes? Boom.
Yeah.
Something like that.
It was super easy. Or if it was just the one kid and he'd be off playing, I'm like, all right, well, I'm just going to turn the movie on. He's over there playing with Legos, coloring, reading the book.
As long as it's a movie that's like relatively clean, that's like, okay. Yeah.
Yeah, I did not watch Leon the Professional while the kids were here. I waited till after they left to watch that movie.
Mommy, what's cocaine? And what's all that white stuff all over his face?
It's flour.
Yeah, right. Exactly.
But no, we're not here to talk about those first time watches. We're here to talk about some horror first time watches. For me, these are all obviously movies that you like to love because you chose these movies.
Sure.
And so the first one you chose, we're going to go most recent to the oldest, and you'll see why when we get to the oldest.
Sure.
It kind of makes sense.
Yes.
The first one we've got is the 2022 remake of Hellraiser. So why did you decide to go with this one?
Yeah, no, this one, if any of you guys can really recall, even from our 2022 shows that we did, this was my favorite horror movie of 2022. And I don't know if I think I was fairly in the minority on that one. I'm sure there were some other ones that were higher for other people. But this is one that came out of nowhere and really kind of knocked my socks off when I saw it. I remember starting it and then I had to go to work. And I was like, oh no, I'm like really into this right now. Like, I don't want to do that. So I ended up like finishing it. And then I watched it again like a week later. But yeah, this is one of those ones when it was coming out. I'm not like a huge Hellraiser fan overall, so I don't have some like nostalgic attachment to the original movie. If anything, the sequel is my favorite of the older ones. Hellbound is, I think, a superior movie to the original Hellraiser, just because it expands the mythology and it gets more into like the actual hell world, more Cenobites, like bigger and better, but like cooler. For me, the original was more like a mostly just a guy who's trying to regenerate himself, kind of like the mummy, by killing people, and he keeps getting more and more skin and whatever with each kill, and that's most of the movie into like the last 10 minutes. So like it's okay, but like that. Yeah, when they said they were gonna do this one, I didn't have that attachment, so I was like, yeah, sure, I'm down for like a new take on it or whatever. And could it be any worse than the horrendous sequels over the years and the direct-to-video sequels? And then I watched it and I loved this movie. I just absolutely adored from the opening. I liked the look of it. I just like the feel of it. The atmosphere is big for me. I love the atmosphere of this movie. The lighting of it. Every time the Cenobites in this one show up, there's like the light that creeps into the walls, and like there's a lot of practical stuff that comes in, and a lot of the scenes where they did a lot of practical things with walls opening up and streets opening up and like all kinds of stuff where it gets really surreal and dreamy when they come in. And I just got super sucked into the story and the way they actually treated it. There was more of them. They didn't just show up for the last 10 minutes. Like they you feel their presence for the whole movie, especially since they get a little bit of teases here and there, but really even by the hour mark, they're on screen and we're like getting to know them essentially. We're getting to know the pinhead of this one and whatnot. And yeah, I think this one has atmosphere for days, and they didn't hold back on the gore. They didn't hold back on, I think the performances are pretty damn solid overall. The main girl I was looking up, Odessa Azion or something, who plays Riley.
Yeah.
Like her story of like being this kind of addict and whatnot, with her and her brother, and he goes missing, obviously, and then she's trying to figure out what's going on and maybe trying to get him back. That's kind of similar to the original one, but not as the original was more sinister. Like she goes around like killing people, but in this one, it's just like,
Okay.
Will I have to just to try to get it? What will I sacrifice to get a family member back? And how far will I go, my madness or whatever. So I just really like that. And yeah, there's some nice little twists and turns with the mythology, and I really dug it. But yeah, no, it's just one of my favorites, man. But you saw it for the first time.
I did, and
yeah.
I actually was just like your first time. I had to leave because I watched it today, and I was like, I really need to go grocery shopping.
Yeah, right.
Adulting stuff got in the way, yeah. Because
I know adulting always gets in the way. Why?
So the week is just really busy. I was like, I'm going to watch one of these a night through the week. I'll be ready by Saturday. And then last night came, we got those tournament fights, and I was like, I haven't watched any of those yet. So I didn't need to rewatch our final movie because I've seen that movie before. That movie is amazing. I've actually got it on the background right now.
Just nice. Yeah, just because.
But, yeah, so I watched about.
You can always play a game anytime Jacob's on a stream. What's he playing in the background right now? Right. It's either some movie he's rewatching or a wrestling show. Most of the time.
Most of the time. Occasionally a basketball game, but
yes, a sports ball game. Yeah,
go sports ball. Go my favorite sports team.
Sports team, go.
Anyway, so yeah, I watched the first part of it. I think it was up until they saw. Oh, what's her name from the beginning of the movie? That the guy meets at Voight's. I can't remember her name.
The
one who, yeah,
the older lady or whatever who shows back up later.
Yeah. So I watched to that point and then came home and finished it. And yeah, I mean, so I'm going into this without having any knowledge of the original because I haven't actually seen the original Hellraiser. So for me, this is just a standalone horror movie, and I thought it was really good, and I thought, I think they set up like the mythology really well, and they did our favorite thing where they didn't have to explain things through dialogue. Like we know that she kind of has a problem with drinking. Like they mentioned that she's sober, but they just added that into the writing. There's some good writing here. I did like seeing the guy that plays Matt. I think he's a really good actor. He was in that Netflix series, 13 Reasons Why.
Oh, okay. Yeah.
On there, and I was like, I want to see him do more. So it was cool to see him pop up in this. I loved the designs of the like the pinheads. Like I've seen the original, like the design of
Oh,
him,
sure. I mean, I'm sure you've seen
like
pictures
the
of like
Lucy.
Cenobites or clips or whatever.
Yeah,
Yeah, like how they
stuff.
look. Yeah.
Yeah, so I really liked the look of them. And I want to ask you because I realized they did a switched in gender.
Yes.
Did that have like did that affect the movie at all? Like,
No,
did it
because
change anything?
and here's the thing, and anybody who was complaining about that has never read the Clive Barker original story, because in the original story, Pinhead is just like this non-binary being, like just this entity, that doesn't really, it's a genderless just creature. They just happened to cast, Doug Bradley for the original one, and then for this one they just kind of went with and even David Bruckner, the director, just said we auditioned both men and women, and Jamie Clayton just
Hmm,
killed it. Like the person who plays it
okay.
just killed it, and she did a great job. And it was just kind of a new take. But yeah, the original source material, Pinhead and the Cenobites, even in general, you can see are kind of just these entities. It's not
Right.
really like none of them have like hair or like or any kind of like real suit body. They're like humanoid, but you can tell they maybe used to be a person. And obviously, you get a little bit of that with the guy at the end who they transform, sort of in real time, with the Leviathan thing when they take him
Hmm.
up into the Leviathan, and they kind of turn him into one, and they strip all of his hair and pull the skin apart, do all that kind of stuff. But yeah, in the original one, it's just kind of this being, this creature, essentially this entity. So that didn't bother me at all. I mean, I was just
Yeah.
like, whatever. Again, I don't have a super attachment to the originals. Like, give me a good interpretation, and I'm down for it.
Right.
And I thought she did a great job. Like, she was really intimidating.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, every time she pops up, again, you feel her and the rest of their presence like throughout the movie. Anytime they're, the lights dim or something, you're like, oh boy, here they come. I think one of my favorite sequences, I mean, I have a couple of favorite sequences, but when the lady that's in kind of like the assisted living place, they all, and then she's about to be taken, and she's going from room to room, and the walls are just splitting open, and she's trying to go back and forth, and what I like about them is she even kind of talks to them for a minute. Like, it's not like they immediately start like ripping her apart or whatever. She's just like, hey, is there any way I can like get out of this, or it's anything I could do differently? And they're just like, no, like, you're just kind of screwed. So yeah, we kind of have to take you now. But yeah, I mean, they're not opposed to like talking and negotiating things, and and figuring things out. So I mean, it makes it stand differently from like a Jason or
Hmm.
Michael Myers or something. That like they have motives and goals and whatnot, and I like that.
Yeah. Yeah. I'm wondering if we're gonna end up getting a sequel to this one. It's hard to tell with these streaming movies because you don't have like the box office to go on.
Yeah.
But I mean,
Well, and man, I really would have loved to seen this in a theater. Like this, I mean, we've talked about that before, but yeah, the fact that I don't know how you don't put a Hellraiser movie in a theater, like a new one. It's a known property, and I understand there's been a bunch of like direct-to-video ones, but this movie didn't cost that much. And how much would it really, cost to put it in theaters for 2 weeks? I would have loved to have seen this and Prey. Both Hulu
oh
movies would
yeah.
have been great to see in a theater. I would have really enjoyed that. I like seeing horror, in theater in general.
Mhm.
But yeah, I don't know. There's rumors of Bruckner doing a sequel. There's also rumors of him taking over another property that we'll talk about here in a little bit, actually,
Oh,
and doing a new version of something that we're going to talk about here in a little bit. So he's kind of in demand right now. He's a guy who started out doing a lot of shorts. He did a lot of the VHS. He did shorts in like a lot of the VHS movies and things like that,
okay.
and one called Southbound. Like, so, he was one of those upcoming guys with like Ty West and Adam Wingard
Mhm.
and all those guys kind of just do, playing around in the horror field. And then they've finally given him some, this, and they let him take a crack at this. And at least for me personally, I think this is a success. I dig it.
Yeah.
I've gone back and watched this a couple of times just because, again, I just like the vibe of it. That scene where the girl's in the van and like the van splits apart and like she's like getting further and further away and they're like pulling her away from that, and then she's like backwards and tied up, and like they come into the scene. I mean, it's creepy, man. Like,
Yeah.
I think it's really, really effective. There's stuff that makes you squirm. The dude with the thing in his chest that like twists his nerves and stuff, every couple of minutes, for pleasure, because pain is pleasure to them.
Yeah.
So that stuff like creeps me out, just like gives me goosebumps. But yeah, I just think it does what a good remake or reboot I think should do, and that's keep some of the basic premises and the mythology and whatnot, but do some different things with it. Play around with it a little bit and
Mhm.
give it kind of a new look and a new vision. So I liked it a lot, man. I don't know, I just vibe with it. I wish more people would give it a chance. So it's got like okay reviews for the most part, but I hope more people kind of come around to it in the future. Like I think it's really good.
Yeah, I liked it. It's
Yeah.
I don't know if I'll go back and watch the original series just because it doesn't
I'll
sound as
tell you
outside
this:
of the first two.
if you ever do, just watch the first two. Just watch the first two, and you're good.
Yeah,
Honestly, you're good. One and
I
two,
think they're,
you're fine.
I
Double
think they're
feature,
all
you're fine.
in a movie or something. Because
Yeah, yeah, yeah. The 3 and 4 were in theaters. They're not great, and then after that, it's just the dumpster. So they were all movies that weren't even Hellraiser movies. They were like other scripts just for movies, and they tack Pinhead on in the last 5 minutes and call it a Hellraiser movie. It's terrible. That's literally what they do. So, yeah, if you ever do, just watch the first two, and you're cool.
that's probably what I'll do. Yeah, because I really like this one. I hope they do more with this. I think like you said, some of the gore, like it's not really a bloody movie, but just some of the all the hooks and pulling and
Yeah,
I
that's
don't.
that's what it is.
Uh, uh,
Yeah, it's just like skin pulling and nerve twisting
uh,
and all the little twisting and pulling and cracking and like all that stuff is like what gets you. Yeah, all those little things. Yeah, so it's not so much about like decapitating heads and blood gushing everywhere and
right.
things like that. It's just more about the stuff that gets under your skin, like literally. That's what it's all about.
Oh, and Trevor's kind of a dick.
Yeah, well,
Just
Trevor's
put that out.
there's always
uh,
one.
there's always one. Yeah, like you said, the twists and turns the movie takes were
Yeah.
really good because I I didn't see that coming.
Yeah.
That's always nice when you don't see a twist coming.
Yes.
Although looking back, like he was the only one that was like really believing Riley,
Yeah,
so like
yeah,
it
yeah.
kind of makes sense. But at the same time, like maybe he was just being supportive. But now it's like, oh no, you that's why. Okay.
Yes.
Yeah, no. So let's move on to our next movie, where we are going to have mixed opinions on this, but that's the beauty
Okay.
of movies, and that's okay because I'm glad you like it, and I think there are some redeeming moments. I think there's some good moments in the Texas Chainsaw Massacre
Yeah.
from 2003. I think it's just for me, real quick, and then I'll let you
No, no, it's fine. Go
sing,
ahead.
sing
Yeah.
praises. I just think that first movie is so good.
Yeah.
That I think I was just unfairly comparing it.
Yeah, yeah.
Whereas with Hellraiser, I didn't have to do that because it was, I hadn't seen the original, and that one was just really good.
Yeah.
Whereas the Texas, I think it's so good, and I think it's just such a simple premise and such a simple movie. Um, and this movie, like, it was just super dark for some of it, and it's like hard to see what was going on. Where I think with the original, like it felt just a little bit brighter, like it was
Yeah.
during the daytime. And I think that's true for most of these 2000s remakes. Like I think you saw that with Friday the 13th was a little darker.
Well,
It
they have this digital look to them,
Yeah,
because everything started going digital around then, photography wise.
right.
So and it's funny you should bring up the Friday 13th because it's the same director, Marcus Nispel. So these
Mm,
movies look similar because it's the same
okay,
director.
that makes
So which makes sense. And all those Platinum Dunes remakes that came around that time, which is the production company did this. They did this
sense.
one, they did Friday the 13th, they did the Nightmare on Elm Street remake, which are all kind of have a similar look to them,
Yeah, yeah, that
just
was
for
the other
what
one I
they
was going
are.
to mention.
Yeah, yeah. No, I mean, it's because they're all the same company. They're kind of dancing around the same sort of thing. No, and I totally agree with it. Again, I don't put this one up above the original. The original is
Right,
superior.
right.
If I rank the series, which I've done before, I go the original, part two, as far as Toby's part two, then probably this one, something like that.
Okay.
Overall. So yeah, I'll never put it above the original because the original has that grindhouse, almost like snuff
Hmm.
film feel to it, but it's deliberate that way. Like
Yeah.
it's not cheap. It's just it feels real when you're watching it. You watch that one, yeah. When they first go into that house in the original one, you can almost smell it. You see like the bones like laying around, like the old food. You see like the dead animals like here and there. You see like the flies. You can almost like smell that house, and I do feel like this movie's kind of lacking that a little bit. Like when she first goes around, and the dude does crack the joke about like wipe your feet, I'll have to keep a clean house. Like that's funny. And it's still kind of grimy and dirty, but you don't get that same kind of grimy and dirty. It just feels like it's just like it's just messy or whatever. I'm sure Leatherface's chamber smells much worse with all the actual skin and body parts and whatnot down there. I'm sure. But no, I get what you mean, because that original one still has like those colors with like the reds and the sun. You get a little more sun like coming around. There's that beautiful shot of that final shot where Leatherface is like doing his little freak out, and there's the sunset behind him, and it's gorgeous. Like it's one of the most beautiful horror shots ever. And this one is interesting though, Jacob, because they actually brought back the same cinematographer, Daniel Pearl, from the original one 30 years later to actually shoot this. So there is some like good looking photography here when they do have a little bit those brighter shots of the initial house, like when they first get there.
I will agree with that.
No, there's some good stuff going on here, and eventually it gets to nighttime, and it's it's them going from kind of grimy location to grimy location, with the slaughterhouse and that trailer and all that kind of stuff. So no, I totally get that. I just still think they do a decent job here of at least setting up the characters and having some decent work with that. I think all the performances all around are pretty good for the most part. A little bit higher quality than your average sort of slasher movie. I think Jessica Biel is pretty strong, like in what she's doing.
She was really good. I do.
Yeah, really like So I think she's strong. She might be a little bit stronger than the original Sally. Like if I had to compare them 1v1, because Sally spends most of that original movie just screaming. Like just screaming. And it's a lot of screaming. And I get why, but it's a lot of screaming. And she screams here too, but she's also trying to, like, you can see her trying to figure things out and like plan her next move and and whatnot, so you can kind of get behind her. I think the supporting cast is a nice mix of people. Eric Balfour, who's like the first one to go, like he's pretty good. The nerdy guy, like Morgan, is okay. Like he's kind of slimy and and weird, but like,
I think he was my least favorite. Like I kind of wish maybe if he was the first one to go, maybe I would.
Sure. But at the same time, he gets some of the worst stuff because he has to deal with Arlie Army for most of the movie. So and oh my god, is Arlie Army awesome. Like he's so good in this movie, and once he shows up, I think the movie kind of kicks into overdrive a little bit, because it takes a little while to kind of put all the pieces together. But once he shows up, and like, when is Arlie Army not good? Like, but he's great here. He shows up and he's just scuzzy and he fits the time period, and you don't trust him immediately because he's Arlie Army and he's gross, and he's spitting tobacco chew, and he's just you just don't trust him, and as you shouldn't. Because there's a revelation about his character that from the Texas Chainsaw Massacre at the beginning, the prequel they did after this. I don't know if you want to know that and just spoil it. He's not an actual sheriff. He killed the original sheriff and just took all of his shit. Yeah, I mean, big shock, right? No, the opening thing I think in that movie is him like killing the original sheriff and just stealing all of his shit, and like there's one guy anyways. So so he ends up just kind of taking over the town. Not that everybody in that town isn't like inbred and part of the same family anyways, but and they're all just in on everything. But I think the one sheriff guy was the one guy who wasn't, and they just like kill him anyways. So that's a whole nother thing. That movie's not great. Arlie Army's in it and he's awesome. Like he gets a lot more screen time in that one. So that's like the one good thing, is like he's still amazing. But like he has a fun role here, and I think he's being properly slimy and whatnot. There's enough of those like weird characters. The guy in the wheelchair, sort of the grandpa of this movie, who's properly cranky and weird, and get the little inbred kid like running around, trying to half helping him out, half not. You get like the two weird women in the trailer with the weird fat woman who's just like, oh my, oh child. I think all the character work and the acting is good in this movie, which I think, at least for me, steps it above kind of your average horror movie from around that time. At least for me, is why I go back to it.
Okay. I mean, I didn't hate the movie. It just I was like, if I'm going to watch a Texas Chainsaw Massacre movie, I'm just going to go.
Oh, I'm going to do the same thing. Watch the original. Yeah. Oh, of course.
But No, I do. Yeah, like you said, I do agree with the points that you made. I think some of the acting is really strong. Um, I just I felt like the kills were lacking a little bit.
Hmm.
Um, and I don't think we get that many Leatherface kills either. Like Jessica Biel's the one that ends up killing Mike Vogel's character
Oh yeah, right.
by stabbing. It's like, no, I want Leatherface to kill people.
Well,
You
and we really the only thing we see of Eric Balfour is he gets hit on the head with a hammer and he gets dragged into the thing, and we don't really see him again. And then all we see is Leatherface wearing his face later when he attacks the van. So we
Mm,
know he's dead, but like, yeah, we
yeah,
don't really see him like go out. Yeah, we get Mike Vogel, yeah, hung up on the hook, but yeah, he's not fully dead when Jessica Biel kind of catches up to him. Yeah, I think the gnarliest one is yeah, the nerdy guy gets like hung up and then split in two with the chainsaw on the
yeah,
chandelier. So you know he gets it pretty bad. And again, he probably gets the gnarliest death because he's the one we kind of least care for. So
right.
so you know, properly so. I mean, when Mike Vogel gets his leg chopped off with the chainsaw in the middle of the laundry, like that's pretty good. It's pretty good stuff. You know, and just in general, I think what it's about is I saw this in theaters in 2003. I remember having a hell of a theater experience though, because I
Mm,
think there was kind of a buzz in the air because I think there were fans of the original in the thing, a little skeptical, but I could tell about halfway through everybody was kind of in, like they were all in, they were ready for it. And one of those things about seeing one of these movies in the theater, whether it's the original or this one, the sound of the chainsaw in a theater is like just gets to you, when
mm,
you know, and all the chase sequences and whatnot. The original one, if you can ever see it in the theater, Jacob, and I've seen it twice in a theater, man, those chase sequences at the end where just the chainsaw is just going and buzzing, and when she's ahead of him, but you can hear it in the distance, like on the back speaker, things like that. Like it's this thing that really grades you and gets under your skin with these movies
yeah.
is the sound design.
Mm. I wouldn't be surprised if it was playing somewhere this year. I mean, isn't it
It is the 50th anniversary,
50th?
yeah,
So
this year of the original. So
wouldn't be
I would
surprised.
it would be cool if they put it in the theaters at least for like a Fathom event or something, you know, and got it out there.
Yeah,
I'd be down. I don't know how many theaters would, but that would be awesome. I'd go see it again
yeah.
for
I
sure.
mean, I'd see it in a theater just to for the sound. Yeah, the sound alone,
It's really good, yeah.
and just to see it on the big screen.
Hmm.
That final shot alone
Oh
on
yeah,
on the big screen. That would be really cool.
yeah. I think it's a solid movie. You know, I don't put it above the original. I just wanted to point out I think it's one of the better ones from the 2000s because there weren't a
Mm,
lot of horror remakes in the 2000s. I think this is one that at least stands above some of the other ones that came out around that same time period because there just wasn't a lot of great ones around this time.
mhm,
And I just feel like that's kind of the consensus in the horror community as well, is like Platinum Dude started off pretty well and then sort of dipped in quality with the Friday the
mhm,
13th and the Nightmare ones kind of after that. And then everybody kind of lost interest. So,
yeah.
yeah. And we still haven't had another Friday or Nightmare movie since then, which is kind of odd.
Hmm.
So yeah, I mean, they're kind of dead franchises right now, which is really weird. I know Friday the 13th's got like a TV show coming out from Peacock or something they're working on. Some
Oh
sort
yeah,
of
I've heard of
Camp
that.
Crystal Lake show, so that might be the
Yeah,
next thing. But yeah, I mean, Freddy's kind of dead right now. There's not much going on that front, and I know some of it's rights issues too. There's like weird things going on now. Everything's legal, but yeah, this is a franchise that's still going strong for better or for worse. That Netflix movie was not good.
not not good.
I haven't particularly loved every entry. I didn't like that Leatherface prequel they did. Texas Chainsaw 3D is a weird movie, just story wise. But yeah, I mean, I have a love hate relationship with these Texas Chainsaw movies, but I think it's one of the better ones, especially if you look at the franchise as a whole. Like, if you were to watch all these in a row, Jacob, you'd probably go back and go, "Yeah, that remake was pretty good."
Maybe, yeah, because I've only, yeah, like I said, I've
Yeah,
only
yeah.
seen it's it's the original, this
Mhm.
one, and then that Netflix one.
Oh yeah.
Um, and so it's number two right now. It's
That
definitely
Next Generation one, I have a
okay.
soft spot
Oh, I
for
have
as a
seen that one
guilty
too. Yes,
pleasure.
yes,
I was gonna
no,
say the Matthew
yeah,
McConaughey one is
I have
properly
seen that one.
bonkers and kind of awesome. Like it's really bad, but like kind of awesomely bad. It's
It's
kind of amazing.
it's a fun
Yeah.
bad movie for
Yes, it's
sure.
very fun. So, but yeah, no, that's most of my thought. I know I'm rambling. I'm sorry. I'm
No,
just
you're
trying
good. You're
to
good.
throw everything out here, but yeah, it's good stuff. So let's
All
go
right.
back to the glory decade for remakes, the 80s,
Yeah.
which
Yes.
was a
And
pretty damn good decade for remakes, especially horror remakes.
we'll start with The Blob,
Yeah, one of my
remake of
favorites.
a 19. Let me 55. Right? Was that the original?
Yeah, the original one was 58 as well. It was like 30
58.
years later.
Oh,
Yeah, it was literally
okay.
like a 30-year later remake, oddly enough, I believe. Yeah, the
Hmm.
original had Steve McQueen in it. And it's weird when you go
Wow.
back and watch it. It's like Steve McQueen playing like an 18-year-old and he looks 40 in that movie. It's ridiculous. I mean, he just like has that look where just all those guys, even when they were 30, looked 50 or 40,
Right.
they just, yeah, it's just, that's what alcohol is. It's cigarettes.
Well, it's funny. You bring that up. I think, yeah, speaking of the 80s, somebody posted a picture of a side by side of Arn Anderson in the 80s and Orange Cassidy now, and they're
Yes.
the same age.
Yeah, I know. Art Anderson's like Tommy Lee Jones. He was one of those guys that was just born 40, and or born 50 or whatever, and they just stay that age forever. Yeah, I feel bad for those people that look like that. It sucks. But yeah, the Blob. This is one that me over on tournament fights and whatnot. I've always been a big fan of this movie. It's one of my favorite horror
Mhm.
movies, and I've always kind of championed it, for more people to check it out and look at it. Because while I don't quite put it on the same pillar as Body Snatchers and The Thing and The Fly, as far as like those are kind of the holy grail, like the holy trinity of sort of
Right.
horror remakes. I think it's like just a notch below that but I still think it's
Mhm.
really really good. Because for me, man, structurally speaking, script wise, I think it's a pretty perfect movie, like for what it is. It's a 95-minute movie. You hit all the perfect three-act structures in here. There's great setups and payoffs. Again, great atmosphere. There's really good filmmaking here. There's a good script with good characters. It's a Frank Darabont script. This is before he started making movies. So you got Frank Darabont doing the screenplay. You got Chuck Russell who did Dream Warrior, so he's already
Mm.
got a good pedigree.
Yep.
Who will go on to do other movies. And yeah, and then you throw in a cast of all recognizable people, tons of character actors, people you recognize. You got Shawnee Smith in the lead as Meg, who would go on to be in the Saw movies, obviously. You got Kevin Dillon, who would go on to be on Entourage, Matt Dillon's brother, with a glorious lion tame of a mullet in this
Oh,
movie.
that
Oh
bullet
my,
is fantastic.
it is something. It's funny how we revere all these mullets, but like we're not saying that we would have one, but man, you go back and look and you're like, man, those are things of beauty when they're done right.
I don't think I could pull a mullet off. I
I,
don't
I
think
don't
that's
think
it.
anybody should now. I'm just saying we go back and like watch, we were watching like Clash of the Champions and like every other guy had a mullet on that show.
Everyone. Yep.
And some of them were pretty glorious, Lex Luger's was glorious, Bobby Eaton, some of these guys have amazing mullets. But yeah, Kevin Dillon's got a good one here. But you get Jeffrey DeMunn, who goes on to be in Shawshank and The Mist, Frank Darabont movies. Joe Seneca, who's like the head biologist guy, like he's been in a bunch of stuff. Art LaFleur, who's in like the Sandlot and the Santa Claus movies.
Yep.
You recognize him. The guy who plays Briggs, the deputy, he's in RoboCop. He's the guy who gets toxic wasted at the end in
Mm,
RoboCop, if you remember. The guy that gets covered and becomes
yeah.
like a little toxic waste guy. That's him. So I mean, there's a bunch of like those guys throughout this movie. Bill Moseley. Speaking of Texas Chainsaw, he's in Texas Chainsaw 2. Bill Moseley is the one freaked out guy in the sewer that's with them with the rocket launcher. That's a quick Bill
Mm-hmm.
Moseley cameo sort of role. But yeah, everybody's great, and again, kind of a perfect movie, at least in my estimation.
Yeah, I really liked it. But like, I think yeah, the setup was really good. We get to know Kevin Dillon and Shawnee Smith. We get to know them pretty well. I didn't expect I didn't expect what's his name, the guy that takes Shawnee Smith out. I didn't expect.
Oh, the Paul guy or
Oh
whatever.
yeah, I didn't
Yeah,
expect him
yeah.
to go so soon. I thought maybe he'd stick around for a little bit.
Well,
Oh,
that's
we
one of the subverting the expectation things. The movie kind of resets every 10 or 15 minutes, and you go,
yeah.
"Oh, here's our all-American football player, rah rah," and no, he's one of the first really big kills in the movie. Yeah, and he's gone, and we kind of
Yeah.
reset.
I was like,
Yeah.
oh, okay, he's not gonna help come up with a plan and be one of those
Nope.
guys. So yeah, no, I like I like when what I expect to happen
Yes.
doesn't happen.
Yeah, but in a good way. You don't want it in a
In a
bad
good
way,
way,
but in
yes,
a
yes,
good way,
in a good way.
because because it's shocking because you go like, "Oh, damn. Oh, he's gone. Okay. So I guess we're gonna pivot now, and we're
Yeah,
gonna follow somebody else. Okay, we're gonna follow the bad boy. Okay, gotcha. He's not just gonna be this dude who maybe, reluctantly helps the heroes out or something, he's
right.
actually gonna be kind of the lead and have the little redemption story. Yeah. No, it's nice.
Yeah, and I think he puts in a really good performance too, Kevin Dillon. I think
Yeah.
he's really good. Shawnee Smith is solid.
Mhm.
Um, I loved the just the look of the blob.
Yes.
Was
So good.
really really good. Some of the practical. I'm assuming they were practical effects back in the '80s.
For the
Were
most part,
really good.
there's some composite stuff in the third act once it gets a little bigger because it's just hard
Mhm.
to do something
Yeah, you can
practical
kind of
that
tell a
big.
little bit
Yeah,
too.
once you get to like the main street sequence at the end where it kind of is going crazy. But for the first sort of 2/3 of the movie, all that stuff is practical, and that's what I really like about a lot of these
Mhm.
movies is that sort of filmmaking where they had to just figure it out. All right, how do we do this? How do we do that?
Yeah,
How do we make this thing move? How do we make a blob that looks cool? And yeah, the way you see some of the kills, like with the Paul guy in that medical center, when he gets covered and he's just reaching out, like
mhm.
it's all practical and it's kind of waving over him and he's underneath it and it's like literally burning people, and kind of burning their face off and squeezing and like it's pretty horrific. Like,
Yeah,
but in that good horror way where you're just like, oh, that's gnarly, like, and that's real. That's how do they do that? That's awesome.
right.
Yeah.
And you hear about this premise, and you're like, oh, that's just going to be a silly
Mhm.
B movie. And maybe the '50s one was. I don't know. I
The
haven't seen the
'50s
'50s
one
one.
is a silly B movie. It's got that '50s thing where a lot of that movie is just them talking about the blob, and you don't see a
Uh,
lot of it. And you see a few shots of it going through some sewer grating or coming through a window, or yeah, there's not much going on in that movie. It's a lot more of just talking. A lot of those old '50s movies were a little bit of action and a lot of people just talking in rooms. Jordan
mm,
Anderson would hate a lot of those movies, but no, it's yeah, that's what the original one was. It was just kind of a
okay.
campy B movie. Yeah, it's running around. It takes some people off screen for the most part, whatever. So this was like ripe for a remake because yeah,
Mhm,
with better special effects, with a little bit more exploring like what the thing is, what it can do, how it kind of grows. One of the cool things about it, I don't know if you noticed, Jacob, is when the homeless guy first like pulls it out of the meteor thing, it's kind of translucent and kind of
mhm.
see-through, but it eventually becomes like this purplish pink, and that's
Yeah.
because it's as it eats people, the blood. There's the blood that kind of turns it the darker colors and
Mhm,
whatnot, and turns it to more of that
mhm.
purple, and it has those transformations throughout that are really cool.
Yeah. Yeah, it does look really cool. Uh,
Yes.
I and, like, yeah, I was gonna say, it doesn't take itself too seriously because it is still like a
Mhm.
big blob, but it's not silly either. I think it's like that perfect blend,
It's a
like
perfect balance of
yeah.
campy and like still serious horror. Because I mean, you can't help but laugh a little bit when the dude, the bus boy or dishwasher guy gets pulled into the drain. You know what I mean? And like, I mean, it's silly and you laugh at it, but it's still a cool kill. But
Mhm,
then you have a more horrific death right after that with the diner waitress when she gets like stuck in the phone booth and the thing's just surrounding her slowly, and then like she's freaking out, and then it eventually just caves in the entire phone booth. Like that's a pretty horrific sort
mm.
of claustrophobic thing.
Yeah, if you're claustrophobic, that would
Yeah.
probably
Well, and there's even little payoffs in that. She sees the sheriff's face in that, and they kind of had their little a little back and forth there where they were going to meet at the diner, and so he got taken out on the way to the diner. I'm assuming, but you see people's faces and whatnot in there. See little things. Again, good little payoffs kind of here and there with like the jacket, the kid's jacket's a good payoff. The jumping the bridge, obviously. There's some little things. They kill a kid in this one. They're not afraid to, take out some people in this one. No, the movie theater's fun with them watching Garden Tool Massacre, just like some fake
it's
80s
not
knockoff
hockey
movie.
season.
Yeah, oh, my hockey season ended months ago. Which, by the way, if you watch that scene, it's hilarious because the guy is like waving the thing around. It's plugged in, so all you'd have to do is get away from how far he plugs it in for it to not work. That's kind of silly. It seems like a
Yeah.
pretty ineffective weapon, something you have to plug in, especially on the go.
Yeah, that
That
seems
doesn't work.
ineffective. No,
Yeah, chainsaw is a little bit better. It has its own power source.
Leatherface
Yeah,
knew what he was doing.
yeah.
Um, no, I really like this one.
Mhm.
It's also streaming on Tubi, I believe. So
Of course, yeah,
go check it out if you haven't. If you were
yeah.
very late to it, like I was, I would recommend it. It's probably my favorite of the three that I haven't seen,
Right, right, right.
but it
Well,
was
I was
probably
hoping
my
so. I'm
second
glad you
favorite.
liked it. Yeah, I'm
Yeah,
glad you liked
I
it.
really liked it.
I've always seen some of the praises of this movie, and just and again, I'm not putting it on the exact same level as like a Fly or a Thing or something like that, but I think it's one of those unsung, like really good horror remakes that still is kind of unseen and doesn't get is starting to get kind of the proper recognition. I think that we've had some Blu-ray releases. Shout Factory picked it up, which really
Mm,
helped and kind of got more eyeballs on it. It was kind of unavailable for a while, and like Tubi, some other streaming services kind of picked it up, got it out there. But yeah, it's a really easy watch. Yeah, like I said, 95 minutes, breezes by, good characters, a lot of recognizable
yeah.
people, and just yeah, really really fun stuff, good kills. Again, everything kind of resets every 10 or 15 minutes. Your expectations, they do the twist a little bit where it's not an alien, it's like a man-made germ, like a biological weapon. That's a cool
Mhm.
little kind of twist to it, and them trying to use it. But it's fun stuff, man. I think it just breezes by. It's really entertaining.
Yeah, I really liked it. I'll definitely be rewatching it. I
Yeah.
think just and probably just more '80s horror. I think '80s horror.
80s horror was the shit, man.
Yeah,
Yeah.
I think horror in the '80s. '90s had comedies.
90s had independent film as well. That was the indie
Yeah.
revolution. So yeah, a lot of like indie stuff. Yeah, just indie filmmakers and dramas and whatnot. 70s was like the crazy pushing the boundaries sort of crime movies and whatnot,
Mhm.
things like that, just experimental filmmaking. 60s was like old Hollywood dying off essentially with
Right.
like
Yeah.
old timey stuff. 50s was musicals and westerns. Yeah, and 40s was like film noir. Like there's definitely some themes, yeah, through the decades and whatnot. But yeah, 80s was action and horror. So over the top action and horror. That's what the 80s was all about. And pretty fun for the most part. Like a
I
lot of
think
them.
so. Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. Between this and your chopping mall, your Nightmare on Elm Street,
Yeah.
the movie we're about to talk about.
Hmm.
Yeah, just a really good decade for horror. I think when I made one of your wheels, I think at least half the movies, or at least a third of them,
Oh
were,
yeah. Well,
were
you
from
have
were
to.
from the '80s.
Sure.
So we'll get into the big one. Yeah, we had to save this one
Of course, yeah. You gotta say
for
how do you
last.
because how do you top it? You really it's hard to.
Yeah, no, John Carpenter knows what he's doing when it comes to horror. I think, because as Jordan Anderson has said before, I can't really find anything wrong with this movie.
No, A tier.
So A tier.
Not a single flaw. A tier. Still bug him about that one to this day. Not a single flaw in this movie. An all-time classic. A tier. Anyways, love it, Jordan. That was hilarious. No, John Carpenter's the thing. Yeah, what's there to say about this movie that hasn't been talked about to death? But we're just here to add on to the praise. Why not? Because it deserves it. Because it's
Yeah,
awesome.
it does. Which I was very surprised when I was looking this movie up. Just to was like, is it one of those that has like the rare 100 on Rotten Tomatoes? No, it's an 84% on Rotten Tomatoes.
Yeah.
16% of the people who reviewed this movie were like, no.
Well,
And
and
I don't
some
get
of
it.
that was because when it originally came out, the original reviews were very mixed. This movie did
Mm,
not get a rousing reception when it first came out. It kind of notoriously bombed at the box office because it came out around the same time as E.T., and everybody wanted to see the fun. alien movie and not the not so fun alien movie with
Mm,
death and destruction, and it was just kind of bad timing. It just a mishmash of, the marketing wasn't great for it and whatnot, and it took a long time for this to really find an audience. On home video, obviously, and cable is kind of where it started to really find an audience. But yeah, the thing, at the time was not really revered. A lot of people just kind of dismissed it as a gross, special effects horror movie. They didn't take it too seriously. And yeah, it took a lot of people a long time to kind of come around on it, even critically and re-examination over the years.
yeah, there's a review I read that I thought was just ridiculous. Um, it says this version is so full of the thing that it strangles our imagination and becomes a mere exercise in ugly, mechanical horrifics. Very dumb, very disappointing. It's called The Thing. Of
Yeah.
course, The Thing is going to be in the movie. That's like watching 101 Dalmatians and saying, too many dogs.
Yeah.
Like,
Well, I even saw one from the New York Times that said like it's phony looking, and I'm like, it's a thing that takes multiple forms, and this movie's all practical, and it
yeah,
looks amazing, and it still holds up 40 years later.
right.
You think if they did see look at just the 12 or 13 years ago, whatever the other one from 2011. Look how much that doesn't hold up 12 years later with CGI, with modern
Mm,
CGI, and how much that doesn't hold up, and how this movie 40 plus years later still works and still looks horrific because everything you see in
yeah.
this movie is real. And,
Hmm.
and it was made by real puppeteers. A guy named Rob Bottin, who's kind of the head of this thing. Stan Winston chipped in on this one. Guys coming up again, that creativity, Jacob, is what we talked about, even with the blob. How do we do this? How do we figure it out? We don't have CGI. We can't do it on a stop motion, or is it like, how do we do this? How do we figure it out? I don't know. We got to figure out how to make a puppet with 6 dog heads. We got to figure out how to make a head
How?
detach from a body and turn into a spider and sprout legs. We have to figure out how to have a little crazy little thing in a blood container pop out of that, and a dude's head expand and look all over the place. How do we do all this stuff? Well, we just got to figure it out. Get creative. This is the ultimate creativity on how to do all this stuff,
Hmm.
and a thing that can take any form it wants, which is one of the cool things about the thing, is that it is undefined, in my opinion, is that it is not exactly just some look. If you want that, you go watch the original 50s movie. You ever seen it, Jacob? I'm assuming you
I
haven't
haven't
seen the
seen
original one.
it.
The original 50s movie is James Arness, this guy who was on Gunsmoke. I believe it was either Gunsmoke or Bonanza. I get the two mixed up. I'm sorry. He was the sheriff. He's a big, tall guy. He's like a 6'5" guy, and it's just an alien dude running around this base. It's literally like a Frankenstein type monster. You know what I mean? It's just a thing. There's not much creativity to it. There's not much going on there. And this one, because you have the aspect of the creature that can take all the different forms, and the fact that you can't trust anybody, you take two of my favorite things ever. You take awesome creature effects, practical effects, you mix it with paranoia horror, and you got a hell of a damn movie.
Yeah, yeah, and like you were saying, the practical effects. I just looked up the budget for this movie was 15 million, and
Yeah.
if you translate that to today, it's just over 48 million,
Mhm.
which for movies nowadays isn't a lot.
That's still a pretty mid-budget, relatively cheap movie. Yeah.
So
I mean, yeah,
what they
it
were
makes
able
sound
to
crazy.
accomplish with the budget
Yes.
that they had was pretty outstanding.
Yeah.
Um, yeah, I remember. I was just watching it, and I was as much as I was in awe of the performances and just the atmosphere of the movie.
Oh
Yeah,
yeah.
the creature design just as much. Like when they first get the flamethrower
Mhm.
on the thing, and like I'm like, oh my goodness, that just looks
It looks
so
great.
cool. It
Yes.
looks awesome.
Mhm.
Um, what you were saying about the paranoia, like, yeah, not being able to trust anyone,
Yeah.
like having to watch your back all the time, like,
Why do you think I like Body Snatcher so much too? I love paranoia horror
mhm,
because to me that's more horrific than even a creature, because once it takes a form, you can deal with it, in some way.
Mhm.
I think the scarier thing is, yeah, not being able to trust the person next to you or trust
Yeah.
anybody or know if you can trust that person. And to me, that's why I love two of my favorite horror movies of all time, number one and number two, Body Snatchers from 78 and The Thing from 82. And both, what do they both deal with? Paranoia. And
Yeah.
paranoia is all over both these movies. And it just adds that extra layer of horror, that extra layer of that something, that terror, that tension of, yeah, not only do you have to deal with the people in front of you, but you got to deal with this thing running around God knows where at any given point, and not doing it. I love the fact this movie has jump scares, but it earns them. It's
Mhm.
not cheap. The blood test is obviously one of the most famous kind of jump scares in history, but it's earned. It's not hey, I touched you on the shoulder, and a loud screeching noise that none of the characters on screen would hear inside the movie. It's just for the audience to make them jump out of their seats.
Right.
Happen. No, it's actually a thing that makes noise, and it made noise, and it jumped out of the thing. So of course it scared everybody, and it scares us, and it scares the people in the movie. It earns them. They're proper jump scares. I hate this startling shit. I can't stand this. Oh my god, it was starting to annoy me. I like the movie overall, but I saw Immaculate in the theater, and
Mm.
boy, was the first half of that movie just chock full of, you can see him coming a mile away, just like loud noise, startling scares. I don't even call them jump scares. It's just startling noises. I hate that shit. I just can't stand it because it's a noise that doesn't happen within the movie. It's just in the sound mix for the audience, which I hate.
Right.
I just
Right.
can't stand that. So yeah, that's cheap. That's unearned. I don't like that. But what a lot of these movies that we talked about have, stuff like The Blob and even Hellraiser in this movies, they have that atmosphere. So you're already on edge because of the way the movie is set up and the tension. But you feel like anything could be around the corner. Anything could
Mhm.
happen, which is it's what really adds to it.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Um, I think the cast is really good here. Kurt Russell, obviously, Keith David, who we might have to do an episode on
Keith
Keith
David.
David because Keith David
Sure.
is
He's
awesome.
awesome. Yeah, he's great.
Between this and his 10-minute fight scene with Roddy Piper and They Live,
So good.
great. He's got a great voice too. Like
Well, that's why he's
his
done a
sort
lot
of
of voice. That's why he's done a lot of voiceover stuff. He gets casted in a lot of
yeah.
voice acting roles. He was the voice of Spawn. Speaking of Spawn that we watch, he's the voice of Spawn on the animated HBO
Mhm.
show that they did.
Mhm.
And they even brought him back when they had Spawn recently in the Mortal Kombat, one of those Mortal Kombat
Yeah.
games. They
Yep.
brought him back to do the voiceover for Spawn, and rightfully so. I was like, good on you guys. You remembered. I was like, good. And he can still do it. So why not?
Yep. And when Disney couldn't get James Earl Jones for their Lion King video game, who did they get?
Keith
Keith
David.
David.
There you go.
Oh, yeah, he's just got a great voice. He's my favorite part of The Princess and the Frog too.
Mm.
Speaking of
Oh yeah,
which,
that's right. He's the villain, right, in
he's the
that movie.
villain. Yeah. His
Yeah, yeah,
song in that movie is so good.
yeah, yeah.
But back to the thing. Yeah, rewatching this, like, all right, I'm gonna try my hardest to
To
find
know
a
who it
nitpick.
is.
To
Yeah,
find a
find
nitpick.
something.
I'm gonna
Right.
find something, and I couldn't, which makes me wonder what those 16% of you
Yeah,
on Rotten Tomatoes that said I don't like this movie. I want to know
yeah. I
why.
just I don't get it.
I don't get it because yeah, it's not my favorite John Carpenter horror movie. I do love Halloween. Um, but man, if this isn't a close number two, I
No,
feel
I think there's a reason why it's in most horror fans at least top 10 like of all time. It shows up pretty much everywhere on every list you see of like the greatest horror movies ever made. This
Mhm.
is in every single one of them. How could it not be?
Right.
I've seen it in a theater 3 times. I've been fortunate
Nice.
enough to do that. The last time was when I was in Orlando around Halloween Horror Nights, and it was before Halloween Horror Nights, but they were showing it at like 9 o'clock at night, like for just a
Mm.
random showing. And I was like, "Yep, I'm going to watch that in the theater again." Okay, and this movie still works in a theater. It works. Yeah, you got Ennio Morricone doing the score, the
Yeah,
dum dum
great
dum
score.
dum 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 dum, and that's a dread, like pure dread score. Just you're already. They open up with that and the shots of the Arctic, and you're like, "What is going on here?" Like, you're already like, "Okay, something's gonna happen. This is like something creepy is happening." And yeah, and then you add in the survival aspect of the isolation of we're in the Arctic. What the hell? Where are we going to go? Let's just say we survive. Just theoretically,
Yeah,
we survive this thing. What then?
we are thousands of miles from
Thousands
anyone.
of miles from anyone. So what do we do? And no way to get there. So yeah, even then, it's like at the end, Kurt Russell and Keith David are technically alive. One of them might be a thing. We still don't really know. It's kind of left ambiguous. Maybe there's clues and whatnot. But yeah, they survived. Now what? Well, let's just sit here for a while, see what happens. It's a great line. So good.
I love ambiguous endings. That Inception, Prisoners,
Good ambiguous
good
endings.
ambiguous endings.
It's
Yeah,
shitty ambiguous endings that don't earn them. You have to
right.
earn your ambiguous ending. You have to earn the discussion afterwards of what actually happened. If you just cut off the movie with nothing you've earned and you're a bad movie and you end ambiguously, no.
Yeah,
There's certain ones that don't do it, but this one is one of those ones that earns it to where you can have a proper debate and like back it up, and you can be excited about that. Oh man, I wonder what happened after that. Oh man, what happened? This happened. They would both be dead eventually. Everything would be dead eventually because there's no more shelter and they're
right.
screwed. And a blizzard's coming and it's going to be negative 100. They're all dead, including the thing.
They'll be dead within a week.
Yeah, they'll be dead for quickly. But even then, still you're along for the ride, and it's really, really good.
Right.
So, no, great stuff.
Yeah, it's kind of a perfect movie to end on when talking horror remakes.
Oh yeah, you kind of have to. It's either that or Body Snatchers or The Fly. It's like one of those you
Right.
have to kind of end on. Yeah, The Fly is so good. I know we've talked Body Snatchers on here. We'll have to find a way to talk The Fly eventually.
Yeah. Well, I think we did when we did
Did
we did
already?
our director blind spots.
Oh, did you have the Cronenberg thing? Okay.
Yeah, I hadn't seen anything from him, and I was like, this seems like a good
Oh, that's right.
starting
Okay.
off point.
Right.
So yeah,
Nice.
and now it's one of my favorite movies. I watched it twice that week.
Oh yeah, I did the same thing. First time I bought that DVD, I blind bought it and just devoured everything. Devoured the commentary, all the behind the scenes, everything.
Really
Just
cool.
love it. Yeah, great stuff.
That's probably my favorite when it comes to like the body horror
Oh yeah.
genre. Like it's really good.
Mhm.
Well, I'm sure it'll come up on another show that we're a part of at some point because
At some point we'll talk about
as
it.
will the Thing.
Yes.
Maybe the Blob, maybe Hellraiser. It depends.
Mhm.
But yeah, people love the Thing, and yeah, I would also recommend Hellraiser and the Blob, and yeah, Texas Chainsaw. Like I said, I wasn't the biggest fan
Sure.
of it, but I also didn't hate it.
Mhm.
It was just sort of a all right.
Oh, sure. No. I again, I reemphasize. I still hold the original one in the highest regard, like much more above it. I just think it's worth seeing at least because I think it's one of the better efforts,
Mhm.
and in a decade that didn't have the greatest horror, in the same decade as we had the Fog remake, which is awful, and some awful remakes here, and a lot of those bad like Shudder and like One Missed Call and like the Grudge remake and like all that shit. Like, just no, just whatever. We were just getting bombarded with them.
Yeah.
I think that one at least stands out as pretty good. So I want to at least acknowledge that.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think I remember being on the for some reason I was on the Rankum when we did the 2000s horror episode, and then they did the championship, and I'm pretty sure nothing from the 2000s made the
Well,
top.
I remember seeing that was one of the first ones I saw when I saw the list, and I think somehow the Friday the 13th remake got on that list, and I was like, "What?" I was like, "Come on, dude! I could have put like plenty of movies from the 2000s like on that list." And yeah, I think I joined. I put up so much stink. I think Malcolm had me on the rest of the episodes just because I was like, I need to be the voice of reason on these damn shows. So I did the 90s, I did the 80s. I think me and Mesa did like the 60s and before, like the classic ones, things like that, and even 70s to a degree. Yeah, it was just like I was like, no, I can't let this stand. It's like you cannot put top 12 of the 2000s, but the Friday the 13th remake on there. I know some people like it, but I'm sorry, that movie's not great. Yeah.
I was able to get Sweeney Todd on there, so it was somewhat of a success for me.
Cool.
Like we said, it's the 2000s.
Yes, I know. What are you gonna do?
I think the 2010s got a little better for horror, and I think we've gotten some pretty good stuff this decade too.
Yeah, no, and the future, at least for this year, currently, we'll talk about that on maybe our recap show that we'll talk about here. But it's gotten a little bit better lately for horror, although we started out kind of rough. But I've seen some good ones lately so that we can talk about on that show, at least briefly. But yeah, it can always be a mixed bag, horror wise. I've seen some good stuff, seen some bad stuff, a little bit in between. But yeah, you can't ever tell if it's going to be a good or bad year until literally get to the end of the year because I don't know. It's been a little bit of each right now.
Right. I apologize if my connection's a little off. I've got the symbol next to the next to the live net. So we'll go into what we're gonna do in the future. As you mentioned, we'll be doing another show Wednesday because I'm actually available this coming Wednesday, so we'll be live then to recap the months of February and March. Do a fun tier list like we did last time, so that'll be fun. And then in 2 weeks, it'll be just after my birthday. It'll be my turn, and I have decided we like to do these 4-packs. We're gonna do a 4-pack of movies. We don't talk very many classics on the channel, and so classic animation. We're gonna go to those first 4 Disney movies, excluding Fantasia because it's not really a narrative. It's more of a concert movie with some shorts. So those first 4, we're gonna do Snow White, Pinocchio, Bambi, and Dumbo. 2 of which a horror movie at some point. So
yeah, we can talk about that when we do the recap show. Yeah, 2 of those are we're gonna see a different side of here from Jagged Edge Productions later this year. So we may be talking about those. Yeah, no, that should be interesting because some of those I have not seen in a very, very long time. So they'll be almost like watching it for the first time. Dumbo was a favorite when I was a kid. I did have Dumbo on VHS, so I've seen Dumbo a good number of times, but again, not in a while. Pinocchio, I've seen not like fairly recently, but probably within the last 10 years or so. And the other 2, Bambi and Snow White, I've not gone back to since I was a little kid. So that should be interesting. I'll have to break out my my Blu-ray set. Sorry, this is unofficial. I should put that away. It's a not official Blu-ray set. They're included in here. I don't know where that came from. Something Facebook's weird. Facebook Marketplace. But anyways, that should be interesting. Yeah, because it's been a minute. But I'll tell you what I like about all those movies, Jacob. Aren't they all like 65 minutes or something like that, or like 70 minutes tops?
Yeah, 70 to I think maybe 80 at the most.
I was saying, what's the longest one? 80 minutes, 85? Yeah, I mean, yeah.
So, almost just a little bit longer than the episode of Tournament Fights was.
Yeah, right.
Which was a fun time. Go back and check that episode out if you
that was fun.
If you haven't. It was a lot of fun. If you're wondering why Dumb and Dumber made it to the second round, just watch and find out why.
Yes.
But that's what we've got for the next couple episodes of this show. I believe next week for Tournament Fights. Monday is going to be what's?
Oh, let me look. I'm sorry. I was.
I know Tuesday is our Friday.
Yes.
Is our TV versus episode, so that'll be fun. But
we'll be going Monday for Tournament Fights for an April Fool's episode on April Fool's Day. So tune in for that. Yeah, we'll have our recap show on Wednesday. We'll do Lonely Marks on Thursday. We're almost to WrestleMania.
We're
very close. We're literally a week away. A week from tonight will be night 1 of WrestleMania. Do we get to see the final boss in action. The Rock, first time at WrestleMania in a while, wrestling. So about 10 years. Yeah, so that should be fun. Yeah, me and you's TV episode, and then and then a couple weeks after that, we'll do that animation show after WrestleMania weekend because we'd be busy. We're wrestling fans. Can't be doing shows.
I don't want to sit in front of a screen for 8 hours on a Saturday and then do 6 hours.
Right. We just want to sit in front of our screens for about 4 hours. For this show. We can do that. Yeah. No, the question is whether or not I'll get pizza both nights. We'll see.
Yeah, it's like, what do I want for dinner Saturday? What do I want?
Pizza's always one of them when we watch a pay-per-view, but now there's 2 back-to-back. I don't know. What's going to be the other night?
What bad decisions am I going to make?
Yeah, I know. All right. What will I get that I'll have to work out extra hard that day to make sure I burn off in advance?
Good thing I walk to work now.
Hamburgers and French fries. Yeah.
But no, it should be a fun time. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah.
Looking forward, all the episodes that we have coming up. And you can also catch me Monday, Combat Wrestling Trivia, my final match in the Clash. That'll be live on Twitch, twitch.tv/Castifer is where you can find that. You got anything else next week?
No, that's most of my stuff next week is just involving. I think I'm going to be on our friend Ryan Permison on his And I Quote channel. He's celebrating. He crossed 1,000 subscribers on his channel, so he's doing like a celebration. That'll be before tournament fights on Friday, like 7:00. So I'll hang out as long as I can until I have to break up for tournament fights, obviously. But it's just going to be kind of a live stream, just hanging around, goofing around. So a little celebration. He invited me to be on that one, so nice. I'll be on there because I've done a lot of watch-alongs and commentaries with him and whatnot, anniversary style as we do. Speaking of anniversaries, we'll probably do that after your episode. We'll probably start getting into our anniversary years because we got to start getting to that. And some of those years are stacked, so we may have to pull like 4 movies for each year, much less, the old thing we did last time.
A little earlier this year.
2 for each one. Yeah, so we'll start a little earlier and we'll get that. But that'll be fun. Yeah, we can pick 4 movies from each year. Will we talk about Texas Chainsaw Massacre for 74? We could.
Maybe.
Possibility. The OG. We could. Just saying. But that'll be fun once we get to that.
Yeah, I always like to make it a point when we do those to do a nice mix of stuff I've seen and want to champion.
Yeah, no, like we each pick out like a favorite, but then we also pick like one that we just want to watch and make ourselves watch, things like that, or maybe one with some prestige or whatnot that we mean to get to, all that kind of stuff. So we try to mix it up a little bit.
Yeah, so be on the lookout for that. Like, share, subscribe, hit the bell. Go join the Schmodown Friends and Family group on Facebook as well to know what's coming in the future. I'm in the process of starting a league for Trivia Triathlon. So if you want to sign up for that, either just let me know directly or there's a sign up in the group on Facebook. Pez will sign up. I think I've got about like 12 people already.
Hey, I won the last one, so I should, naturally try to get in on this one. When you brought it back.
But they're super easy. I think they're super easy to write. It's just a matter of buckling down and then just doing and taking the 20 minutes to just do it.
Sure.
It should be fun. I'll explain more about how it's going to work later. But for now, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell so you're notified when we go live. And then, check out all the other channels that we're associated with. Like you said, And I Quote with Ryan Permison. Good stuff over there. Take 3, the Pierce Co., all those other trivia spaces. Check them out. So, again, happy birthday to Austin in about... Well, for me, it's about 9 hours. For you,
just a little under 6 hours for me. So, not that I'll be awake when that strikes, but when I wake up tomorrow, yes, coinciding with Easter Sunday. That's weird. That hasn't happened in a while.
Right.
Easter's one of those weird ones that just you never know what day it's gonna fall on every year. It's just all over the place.
It
It's weird.
doesn't feel like tomorrow should be Easter.
No, it doesn't either. And the only reason I know it is because our work is closed, our store.
Mhm.
So so I didn't have to ask off for it because we were closed anyways. Not that 38's a birthday anyways. Like who cares? So it just means I'm 2 years closer to the actual birthday of 40. Yeah,
Big
that'll be the
4-0.
one. That'll be the one. I'll have to actually do something for that one other than
Nice,
just
yeah.
silly shows on YouTube. Not that I don't love talking horror on YouTube, but I'll have to actually like do something for that one. But yeah, no, but thanks for letting me indulge my
Oh,
horror
absolutely.
needs for my birthday, and yeah, and for yours, and in a couple weeks we'll talk your animation that you like to talk about.
There we
So
go.
yeah, looking forward to that. We'll give and take as we talked about. So we'll
Yeah,
have a little fun with that.
absolutely.
Yeah.
This was a fun conversation. Again, I recommend watching all these movies, even if I
Yes.
wasn't as high on some of them. I think they're all really good. And yeah, I think they're good remakes. They're not the Lion King. So they've
Well,
got that.
no, and I'm curious to see how those four that you picked, how they work now as a 38-year-old. Do they hold up now?
Right.
Like for me, and some of these I haven't seen since I was a little kid. So let's see how they work. And yeah, that early era of Disney. Yeah, let's see how it works now. And does it still work just as kids entertainment? Does it work for all ages? Does the animation still look decent? Let's see how it goes. I'm looking forward to it.
Yeah. So that'll be a fun time. So again, like, share, subscribe, hit the bell, join the Facebook group. So for Austin, I'm Jacob. This has been a podcast about movies, and we will see you next time.